The world wants you anxious. So in the modern age of 3-second attention spans, constant dopamine, and a lack of peace, you could argue, well, where does this all come from? So we see these days that social media companies want you to be on their platforms as long as possible. They kind of cover it with, oh yeah, take regular breaks and things like that. But realistically, I mean, to do a check yourself, have a look on your phone and see what your screen time is. For most people, it's upwards of 8 hours. And a vast majority of that will be on social media platforms. So social media wants you on these platforms with a 3-second attention span. And that really is this is a very new grounds that we're moving into. This hasn't existed in society and culture anywhere, and say it's only come about in say the last 10 years maybe. iPhones came out in around 2008, but in terms of having these sort of short form content, I'd say less than 10 years ago that they came out. So it's completely uncharted territory, and we're going into it at such a rapid pace. And when you then start to think about it in terms of what sort of environment stimulates someone to be scrolling for these 3 seconds, it's multiple different factors. So firstly, watching these 3-second videos is going to be just flooding your brain with dopamine. And there's been studies to show that that sort of level of dopamine had never been seen before other than through drug use. So it is a real something to think about, people that get sucked into this for hours and hours and hours. But then if we look at it a bit deeper, it's that what causes people to want to be sucked into that. Because if you just said to someone, say 10 years ago before it existed, would you like to scroll through a phone with just jumpy, outy, fast-paced 3-second videos all day inside when like the world is out there? Look at this view. I've moved filming locations, as you may notice. I'm out now in a much nicer hotel in Vietnam. My family's visiting, so I'm seeing them. But the whole world is out there, and I've been kind of just on the beach the last few days. That's why I've maybe missed a few days of these videos. And if you offered someone that instead you could sit just in the dark room with the curtains closed, lights off, and watch 3-second videos all day, which are all essentially meaningless, most people would say no. And I actually found that, when I watch, I'm not saying I'm immune to scrolling. One of my friends was saying that when I've talked about this before. I'm not saying that at all. I do it as well, but I do try and avoid just the sort of meaningless stuff. I'm watching more my sort of content, Christian content, and being educated, which is actually biblical. I'll put the verse here, to focus on good things and learn things through these videos. But I do still obviously scroll through nonsense as well, and that's the whole sort of thing, is that some people do it genuinely just to feel nothing. It has the impact on your brain, the high dopamine of drugs, and people are doing it to numb themselves, which is another impact of drugs and reason that people take drugs. So it's very dark territories. And what my point is, people will ask, how do people get into this pattern? And it's being anxious. And again, there's a lot of spikes in the dopamine from watching this, and also in food. Again, keeping this kind of non-conspiratorial, but there has been a big trend towards people having very high levels of sugar and monoglycocarbonate, whatever you call it, the high fructose syrup, all of that stuff, which is spiking people's sugar levels, spiking their dopamine again, and then through watching short form content doing the exact same effect, spiking the dopamine. So when the both of these are in play and you're constantly up and down and up and down and you have no baseline, it can leave you very anxious and very sort of jangly, which then you might want to numb by, say for example, watching more nonsense on your phone or more nonsense short form content. So you can see how it's a kind of vicious cycle. And I'm not saying anyone's orchestrated this per se, but what I am saying is that is the outcome of what's going on with the whole industry of social media. And my point is that I've been watching a few videos recently kind of talking about this, and the main sort of crux of these videos is faith versus fear. And the point is, when you truly trust in God and you start to come to terms with the fact that God has a plan for your life and you have a purpose, you're not bothered by these sort of things to waste your time. You're not wanting to waste your time. You've got a lot to go out and achieve and a lot to get done, so you don't want to sit inside and do it. But also, a big part, there's big scriptures all about it, that there's a peace which surpasses all understanding. When you're truly feeling at rest and at peace, again, you don't want this constant rush of dopamine that just stimulates all your senses. You want to embrace that peace. So that's the kind of point, is that if you walk with God and you have you learn about your purpose for your life, and you have peace. You're not kind of wanting to do these things. Like, it's when you don't have that and you're in a constant state of sort of chasing your next dopamine high and full of fear and anxiety, that's when you can be sucked in by these things, because these things will numb your anxiety, they'll numb your mind. So that can really suck you in if you have the fear rather than the faith. And that's another thing, like if you truly trust God and know that God is in control, you don't have any sort of worldly fear. You're not worried about your surroundings and the outcomes of situations. You trust God and you follow God's plan. You don't have that fear. So that's the whole kind of point, is that fear and anxiety go hand in hand. They're arguably one and the same. And if you're constantly fearing and being anxious, you will be sucked into these things that feed off that, essentially, or numb it, to put it a bit more plainly. So anyway, I'll keep it brief for now on this one, but I just wanted to see what you guys think on this sort of topic, and if you guys have any insights. I'll make a follow-up video if this is something you guys are interested in, just talking about, because we are, like I say, in very much uncharted territory. Like, these short-form videos that are now taking up 8 hours of people's lives never existed before until about 10 years ago. So if you think about the history of society, that this has never existed, and it's now taking up a third, or literally a third of people's lives, and obviously the other third is spent sleeping. So half of your waking hours some people are spending on these social media apps and watching this short form content, which, like I say, didn't exist as of 10 years ago. And it's with a lot of these things that come out, like new products and new options, they're untested. So I'm very curious to see what sort of tests will come about and what will be sort of found about these things once research starts to actually happen into the long-term impacts of such short-form content and the complete lack of attention span. Because the other thing is that when people watch, like say a documentary, for example, you watch it and you see a topic be analysed from multiple different perspectives, and maybe you watch it with your family or your friends and you talk about it in a lot of detail. That then it uses a lot of critical thinking and really weighing up the facts and thinking for yourself. When you're watching 3-second videos that are designed to captivate your attention and involve not a lot of thinking from your part, they make it very easy for you with their sort of, I mean, I do YouTube myself, so I understand it, I know how it works. And over on my Instagram, like since the start of this year, the first 2.5 months, I've had about 2 million views. So I understand how social media works, and it's about doing the thinking for people, essentially. So in YouTube, there's something called the triple hook. So that's having a visual hook, so something happening to capture your eye, a text hook, so talking about what's going on, about the scene, and then also kind of like and then also an audio hook, so as in saying something about it. So it's a triple hook, so you're doing the thinking for the people in 3 different aspects, and that draws people in. And then it has to be obviously within 60 seconds for these short form content, and within those 60 seconds you essentially need to walk people through a story, beginning, middle, end, and have a conclusion. So when you're doing that in such a small scale, you essentially do the storytelling for them and come to the conclusion for them. So and that's being very lenient. That's for content where people are watching something with a story and with sort of any sort of thing that you could class as purpose. But some content, short form content, isn't even like that. It's just people dancing, or cats, or dogs, or puppies. So it's not even got the story element. But my point is, even the ones that do have some sort of information, education, and story, the story and the thinking, the critical thought is being done for the viewer. So it's training people to have no critical thinking skills. And in university, that's kind of came down to, like, I did a master's degree, and there's lots of different levels to education. Master's is near the top, and at that point you realise that doing tests and just ticking boxes, that's not true intelligence, that's more memory and being able to regurgitate information. When you really get down to it and you do sort of master's and PhD level, you realise that the core of critical thinking, the core of intelligence, I'll give away the answer, the core of intelligence is critical thinking, being able to discern facts and weigh up a whole body of information, look at both sides, see where they agree, see where they disagree, and find a conclusion from them. So that's like critical thinking. That's what intelligence is defined as in the higher education space. And my point is, in short form content, when the thinking's being done for the viewer, or it's just absolute nothingness, there's no critical thinking being involved. So people are losing their critical thinking skills and they're becoming much more just going along with what's shown to them, and then arguably making people much more compliant. because they don't have the critical thinking skills that previously was trained into people through university and through just watching, like I say, documentaries and movies, dramas, even just the news. I mean, a lot of people, there's a big trend in modern times for people to distrust the news, and it's understandable. But if you're not watching that and you're taking all your information from people online who are, like I say, are kind of doing the thinking for you, you're losing that critical thinking skill there as well. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting topics here. I mean, it's stuff that I find very interesting myself. Like the whole fact that this has come about in the last 10 years and it's been completely unregulated, unresearched. So apart from in the UK, it's starting to become regulated here, but that's a whole other debate. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'd love to dive into this more. Let me know any specific areas you'd like me to talk about and cover, because like I say, I do find it very interesting. And yeah, hope to see you guys in the next video. I maybe won't have this nice backdrop behind me. I'm only at this hotel for a couple more days, but it is stunning, isn't it? So I'll enjoy this and I'll make the use of it whilst I'm here. And like I say, yeah, see you guys in the next video.